Welcome back, RC Tankers. In today's video, we are taking a deep dive into the Challenger 2. Challenger 2 from Heng Long arrives RTR, ready to run. All you'll need is 6 AA batteries for your 2.4 GHz radio transmitter. Excellently packaged, and right out of the box, the model is already painted and ready to run. Good manuals included, clear diagrams and whatnot, and the first thing we want to do is double check the function. So we're going to remove the tank here, immediately plug it in, follow our guide in the description below for the 2-minute test drive just to verify everything is working normally, and assuming that it is, we can move ahead with assembling these cosmetic assembly parts. Battery goes there in the back, power up with button on the far right. And we're going to traverse the turret. It arrives in its transport condition with the gun barrel facing to the rear. So let's move that all the way forward. Challenger 2 is a British-made battle tank. Continued the legacy from the Challenger 1. This is a big tank, and it's quite a beauty. Testing the firing mechanism and recoil. Now, the cosmetic accessory parts will be familiar to anyone who's ever assembled a plastic model. It takes you about an hour to cut these parts out individually and then press fit them into the pre-drilled holes on the tank in various surfaces. Not a lot of glue is required. In fact, the majority of these parts are just press fit, as you see here. Especially the road wheels, you don't want to glue those on just in case we need to access the screw behind them in the future to service any of those wheels. I was impressed by how these parts fit together and how they all snap in. Very simple and straightforward. You just want to follow the clearly labeled diagrams to identify which part, which sprue, and these are labeled and identified alphanumerically. Injodeck has a lot of these grab handles, but they do look really nice. A lot of pre-painted detail and shading, as we see here on the Challenger 2. And we can very quickly move on to the decal step. These are adhesive decals, not water slides, so don't add water of any kind. We're just peeling and sticking them. From every angle, I really like this Challenger 2, I've got to say. This is the new version for 2019, which features an adjustable idler for either of your tracks. This is helpful to make on-the-fly adjustments to your track tension. It's a neat feature that isn't present in all of Heng Long's tanks. I was happy to see it here in the Challenger 2. Now, if your tank includes smoke oil, if not, you'll need to purchase it locally, just glycerin. And this is filled into these tubes that you see here on the side. You want 1 or 2 drops, no more. That was too much. 1 or 2 drops per hour of smoking should be more than enough. Let's go outside and play. Always be careful when firing the BBs. Just be mindful of your eyes. And please leave the neighborhood cat alone. The BBs fire a respectable distance. They are low velocity and not exactly accurate. However, you will, again, want to mind your targets and be careful around eyes. The precision imparted by the MFCB, the new version TK6 series, allows very precise and slow movements, as we see here. We can really creep the tank instead of jumping around like an RC toy, and really try to enhance the realism of operating the tank. Of course, it's quick if you need it to be. Independent suspension is a nice touch, and here we can see the infrared. This is a magnetic infrared receiver to conduct infrared battling or IR battling with other TK6 equipped tanks. We'll do a quick demo here. You shoot that T90 and he's going to shudder to register an impact. You can also receive damage. After a few hits, the tank will shut down. Just to show the track recoil. Now there are 4 settings for track recoil. I prefer the smallest setting. Refer to the manual on how to quickly toggle between these different amounts of track recoil. The large is just, it seems very unrealistic to me, but if you want to induce the same, you're more than welcome to. Way too much. This is the smallest, it's almost imperceptible. So we've got this big beast back in the studio to give you my final thoughts. We've tried to clean it up a bit. We got a bit carried away today driving in the dirt and whatnot, but I think that's what's so fun about this tank. It's just, it's really big, and it takes anything that comes at it with aplomb. So what can I say? I do want to give you a few tips and tricks on operating this tank, keep it together and whatnot, and also give you my summary on what I love about it and a few things that anyone looking at this tank should be mindful of before purchasing. So let's start with the good. First off, it's a big tank. It's the longest tank in Heng Long's arsenal, so if you're looking at just getting something really big as a statement piece, you want to fill up that display case, you want to bring the biggest tank to the meet, this is the one to do it with. It looks really, really nice. The overall shape of the Challenger 2, just Challengers in general, have always sort of stood out to me. It's interesting to me that I see on a modern main battle tank on an MBT these sort of 90-degree angles. It's just not something we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing angled, sort of the spaced arrowhead armor on the Leopard 2A6 or the faceted turret of an Abrams. We're not used to seeing these 90-degree sort of angular faces. So in that sense, it lends the Challenger 2 a very unique look. So if you're into big tanks that look special, the Challenger 2 is for you. I do like the detail on the engine deck and a lot of the detail here, which we'll come back to. And I really do like the way that Heng Long implemented the real exhaust stacks here, and this is where, again, as you saw in our build video, where we pour in our couple of drops per hour to keep our smoker nice and happy. Suspension wise, I do like the long suspension. I do like the ample ground clearance that the tank has. That makes it just really fun to run over pebbles, rocks, and really any surface we could throw at this tank. It ate it all up. Nice smooth surface on the bottom. And probably the best thing about this upgrade version is not only does it include the steel gears in the gearbox, but it also has metal pieces for your suspension arms here on your road wheels, and also our idler up here that we see on both sides. So that's what I like about the tank. There are a couple things that people should be mindful of that aren't really great on this tank. Again, just things to consider if you're looking at adding this tank into your own tank armory. The first of which are the decals. Now, wherever we see a decal on a flat surface, it looks great. I really like it. It goes on like any other adhesive vinyl decal. However, on the fire extinguishers here, as we saw in the build video, these are decals. They need to be decals because of the text, and I do appreciate that. However, they include a red circular decal for the bottom, which to me it doesn't look good. So I'm just going to paint that with some red paint and we should be good to go. Again, these aren't deal breakers, guys, just something that you should be mindful of. The second thing from a practical RC standpoint is these shackles that we see up here on the front, these toe lugs, and even these sort of bolts here. These are very easy to fall off, and even if you glue them on, these are the first things that are going to hit any sort of obstacle that you come up against, quite literally. So be mindful if you're rolling through. It does have a nice, as we see here, it does have a nice generous ground clearance, but if you do end up banging things in here, it's gonna break that stuff off. So be mindful. I'd probably glue these down with ABS glue if I were planning on running through tall grass or any sort of small rock or pebble type of terrain. The third thing just to be mindful of is on the back of the tank, we have these fuel drums, and the fuel drums are nicely modeled and they look pretty accurate and scale, and the drums even separate from their carriers. However, it's difficult to sort of demonstrate here. Whenever I pick up the tank, I usually grab the glasses in the front hole here and I pick it up like that. Invariably, I end up angling it like this. However, when you do that on this tank and on the T90, you're prone to hitting this back here, and sometimes that'll loosen. So it's not going to break off every time, but you should be mindful that these are a bit fragile. I've opted not to glue them because I would much rather, if I were to grab the tank quickly, I would rather that these snap off and I can just plug them back in. Whereas if they were completely glued in, I run the risk of shearing that link. However, other than a little decal on the fire extinguisher, gluing down the front pieces, and just avoiding snapping these off, the tank is flawless in my book. It shows that this is one of Heng Long's more recent releases, just in terms of overall engineering, how they've executed different pieces, how everything plugs in and connects. It's really well done. I think the Challenger 2 is recognized as one of Heng Long's better tanks, and it shows. So that's it for me today for the Heng Long 1/16 scale Challenger 2 main battle tank. Let us know in the comments what you think. Is this your cup of tank? Are you into this overall aesthetic? Let's not jump into the comments and start debating the advantages of the Challenger 2's rifled barrel versus the Abrams and Leopard 2A6's smoothbore barrel. That's for an entirely different conversation. But let us know if you like the paint scheme, if you're into the decals, if you would repaint it in other variations, or if you're interested in picking a tank like this up and adding it to your collection. Like, share, subscribe, critique, all the usual fun stuff. And until next time, this is Alpha, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.